There are many components that go into the makeup of a great fishing destination. But for me, the three most important are the people you get to meet, the landscape that you're in, and of course the fish themselves. When you add to this the administration of a government that considers recreational fishing to be a vital segment of the economic and social fabric of a community, you end up with a great fishing destination. The city of Darwin, in the tropical north of Australia, is at the heart of one such area. This vibrant, modern city, where at least 80% of the population goes fishing once a year, has on its doorstep a diverse and exciting fishery. The Northern Territory receives all its rain between December and April. This time is known as the wet. At the end of this season, the floodplains recede into creeks and drains, and then finally all that's left is billabongs and lagoons. The fishing at this time is sensational. The hardest part is being there at the right time. Too early and the fish are still up on the floodplain. Too late and you miss the feeding frenzy that accompanies the runoff. Greg Chan, who owns a big tackle shop in Darwin, has fished the runoff period for many years.
Corroboree Lagoon, it's only about an hour and a half from town, and I guess you could say it's the first and closest of the popular recreational fishing spots that both locals and tourists frequent. When the water's high like it is now, I think you'll find the fish are basically back in amongst the water lilies or back in behind those pandanus trees that we've been casting to. The fly that you're currently using is one way to get them. Yeah. The other way, of course, is to use this type of thing, which is a rubber lure with a lead head. Right. Basically weedless because the hook sits on top and you can cast right in amongst the water lilies and not get snagged up every cast.
If that's where the fish are lying, then that's where you have to cast your lure or fly. In the warm water just after the wet, the barramundi will take with speed and aggression.
Oh yeah, there he is.
This is a great time to fish for barra. They're strong and hungry. Later in the year, as the water cools, they become less active. Barra usually fight hard. They'll wrap the line around the dead stalks of last year's lily pads or bury you deep in the weed beds. Barra usually jump when hooked, but some are just too fat and lazy.
Righto, mate, I think we've got him out now.
Lagoon fish don't have the energy of their saltwater brethren, but they live in such a beautiful place it doesn't matter too much. If you were to write down all of the most desirable features of a recreational fish species, the final description would probably be of a barramundi. Once hooked and clear of any obstruction, they fight clean and are easy to land. In this part of the world, a large landing net is necessary equipment. You never know how big the next one could be.
That's the one.
That's
really.
the slicing action.
The Northern Territory government has taken many steps to protect and enhance this valuable fishery. Constant surveys are taken of angler catch rates. Cost and effort is also recorded.
How many hours have you been fishing today?
Rolly Griffin is the head of barramundi research with the Northern Territory Department of Fisheries.
Have you caught any barramundi?
Well, the floodplain of this area and Corroboree, Billabong, the whole system here is about 30 kilometres of water. And it's very, very important for the juvenile barramundi in particular, those up to 3 or 4 years of age. And in a big wet like this, it's just so productive with all this shallow, clear water just producing energy and small fish for the barramundi to eat. The breeding population will live down in the estuary and the coastal waters, and the spawning will occur down near the mangroves. And the juveniles will live in coastal nursery swamps for a couple of months, and then they'll move onto the floodplains. And then when the floodplains are drying out, they'll move into the main river channels and migrate upstream as far as they can before the river stops running.
There is another species of sport fish that lives in these wetlands, the beautiful and primitive Saratoga. These are surface-feeding fish. The eyes on the top of the head and an upturned mouth indicate this. They live deep among the lily pads or under any bankside vegetation overhanging the water. Some barramundi fishermen consider them to be a nuisance. However, when the barra aren't biting, a steady stream of Saratoga can be a relief. Saratoga grow to around 6 kilos in this water. Most average around the 2 to 3 kilo mark. These green and gold fish with their pink speckles have soft, spike-free bodies. They are usually caught on small lures trolled along the edge of the lily pads. Saratoga fight hard, but someone once described eating them as being like chewing on a wet sock full of bones. The wet season usually finishes between mid-March and early April. As the floodwaters recede from the plains, the aquatic life follows. It becomes trapped in permanent waterholes such as the Corroboree-Billabong complex. All flow ceases. It has a captive population of fish that swims around getting bigger and fatter. Riley Griffin and his team did some fish population surveys over a number of years. They came up with the astonishing figure of 1 barramundi for every metre of riverbank in an average season. In some years, the number is even higher. The determining factor is the size of the wet season. During the wet season, barramundi will migrate, but Saratoga remain in the billabongs. I had to keep reminding myself that this place is only an hour and a half from Darwin. The locals just pop out here for a day's fishing that most people can only dream about. Phil Hall is the man responsible for the field management of the recreational fishery in the Territory. I think Phil has the second best job in the world. He told me a little about his work.
I work for the Fisheries Division of the Department of Prime Industry and Fisheries in Darwin. And that's as the recreational fishing officer, which basically entails all matters pertaining to amateur fishing. Within Stock of Darwin, you really do have outstanding fishing, and I think that's largely as a result of our small population base and an existing, a very healthy fish stock in general in that area.
Saratoga are a fish that seems to have been designed for fly fishermen. They are a territorial fish that guard their patch of water aggressively. Surface flies will draw consistent strikes through the early morning and late afternoon. These are a mouth-breeding fish. Eggs and larvae are protected in the parent's large, hard mouth. This protective cavern makes hook penetration difficult. More Saratoga are lost than are ever landed. Corroboree-Billabong has a huge population of these fish, and that means some great fly fishing. We've just spent a great day fishing on the Upper Mary in the lagoons and billabongs, and the Saratoga and barramundi caught on fly provided some great sport. But tomorrow we're going to be looking for much bigger barramundi, particularly here, below the barrage on the Mary system. This defines the upper limits of the salt water, and below here you find much bigger barramundi. This obstacle to up and downstream migration makes a natural feeding point for all predatory species. Below the wall, vast numbers of juvenile barra gather to wait for the high tide to get them over. Above the wall, barra feed in the current and anglers can fish from the shore, but watch for the crocs. There's a strictly enforced size and bag limit on barramundi in the Northern Territory. Since this has been in place, catch rates have increased threefold in the Mary River system. All fish under 55 centimetres must be returned to the water. Only 2 fish per day and 4 per trip can be kept. These days, many anglers keep none at all.
no shortage of crocs at Shady Camp. It's got to be the world headquarters for crocodiles. But they won't bother much. They won't bother you much, Peter. All you've got to do is basically stay in your boat, use your head. I guess people with dogs aboard would be the most at risk. I think they've got a real affinity with dogs. I guess that's because they live probably mainly on wallabies and small animals like that. But yeah, mate, it's a shame that the press have made them out to be something that they're really not. They've been sensationalised somewhat. They're really a timid animal unless you're in the water with them, which is obviously not recommended. But they spend most of their time getting out of your way.
So what first brought you to the territory, mate?
I'd have to admit it was the fishing, but I was lucky. I went spinning one day in Buffalo Creek. I hadn't caught a barra before, and the first one I got was 15 kilos on a yellow and black barra king lure, which I've still got. It's funny, I don't seem to use it much anymore, that lure, but sure worked on that day. Spent a long time trying to catch a bigger barra after that, several years before I got one that was anywhere near that size, but when he bit, when he first struck and came aboard the boat, I thought, well, these barras are all right.
The key to successful barramundi fishing in tidal waters is to know how those tides affect the life cycle of the river. Barra become far more active after the neap or small tides when the water is cleaner. As these tides build into the bigger spring tides, the increased water volume stirs the system into activity.
Let his head come around, Pete.
Small creeks feeding the mainstream are known as gutters. When these flow into the river, barramundi will lurk around the junction. They lie in ambush, waiting for bait fish such as mullet to be flushed from the swamps.
Hello, mate. It's real obvious. There you go, we might put him back, eh?
Yeah. Lean fish, aren't they? Much leaner than the much leaner than the billabong fish.
Those Rodbury fish. Yeah.
Look at that rod, mate. Phil is one person I know whose first barra was a 30-pounder. Then right in front of me it happened again. Katie Capel, in the first hour of the first day of fishing in the Northern Territory, hooked a beauty. She was in the hands of the best coach in the business, Rod Harrison.
My heart had stopped. I seen him jump, and then Rod started running around for the landing net, and he was jumping all over the boat. But with my first barra, it was good because, I don't know, just come naturally how to catch him. Was every time he jumped, I'd let him have it and that. And it was easy, really, but it's sort of like a shock first time up here. And got a real big one first off.
In these waters, barramundi have the capacity to grow to over 40 kilos. The biggest barra caught in Australia had been well over 100 kilos. Barramundi have an international reputation. Fishermen travel to the Northern Territory from around the world to catch themselves a barra.
Yes! Yeah! Oh, he's a 40.
Oh, man!
The commercial barramundi fishery is at around 30% of its level in the early 80s. Presently, the annual harvest is between 400 and 600 tonnes and is worth $2.5 million. Steps have been taken to reduce and stabilise the commercial harvest in deference to the amateurs. The major river systems closest to Darwin were closed to commercial fishing in varying degrees from 1986 onwards. These closures are under constant review. Recreational fishermen spend over $60 million annually in the Territory. A big slice of this is in the pursuit of barramundi. The Territory is a great place to catch your first barra. Many who go there to fish stay there for good. It's the pursuit of the barra that keeps them in the Territory or keeps them coming back year after year.
Good stuff.
Darwin is a harbour city. It's the only city between Cairns in the east and Broome in the west. This is a very sparsely populated coastline. There are several fishing lodges along the coast from Darwin. These can provide an excellent base to fish from. Offshore, the continental shelf is hundreds of kilometres wide and full of reefs. This shelf is fed with nutrients from all the rivers and estuaries of northern Australia. Where the Arafura and Timor seas wash this continent is the richest and least disturbed coastal fishery left in the world today.
There it goes. The Northern Territory has absolutely thousands of kilometres of indented coastline with hundreds and hundreds of creek mouths like this. And at all of these, on the right tide, you'll find a lot of different fish species feeding right up in the shallows. And this is really exciting fishing.
The best part is that much of the finest fishing is tight in against the coast. Peter Dienoff owns a fishing tackle shop in Darwin. Like many residents of the north, he spends his leisure time on the water with good friends like Martin Stone. The productive relationship between the rivers, the estuaries and the inshore fishery is what makes this such a great place to go fishing. Mangrove jacks are a renowned species of rivers and estuaries. Often the largest specimens will move to offshore reefs and headlands and take up residence there. These are a great sport fish. Once hooked, their speed and ability to get to cover amongst sharp rocks makes them a tough fish to land on any tackle. Elsewhere around the world, jacks are known as snapper. They are members of the diverse species known as lutjanids, which can be found from freshwater habitats to oceanic reefs. With their strong red colour, blue bars and sharp canine teeth, mangrove jacks are a very distinctive fish. In this shallow reef water, they're a real challenge and a lunchtime bonus.
Oh, it's a good one too.
It's a beauty.
Oh, good Jack.
Good, Jack.
No, you want me to land him right here? Don't horse going down the hole.
Look out.
Excellent.
My rod's going to stop fish.
That's a beauty, Jack. Big foot. Big foot.
The resident sea eagles seemed to indicate that it was time to eat. Fishermen from all around Australia just have to envy how good life is for these Territorians. Calm seas teeming with great sport and eating fish, and weather so good you can have a barbecue on the back deck.
What's the fishing like just around Darwin offshore?
Oh, very close. You know, like I think as far as pelagics go, we can just go down to a boat ramp and 5 minutes from the boat ramp, and that is still today where the world record Spanish mackerel was taken, 74 pound on 8 pound line. I don't know what that is in kilo, but it's still rather large. And I think the sailfish captures that I've been keeping record of, the closest inshore we've had is 15 nautical mile from Darwin. In the dry season and towards the build-up of the wet season, easily accessible in a 4 metre tinny. So with the fish that is available in Darwin, you know, it's a paradise. I think this is why a lot of people move up to Darwin for a holiday and decide that this is where they want to stay. And I think the fishing conservation side of things is well in tune with the government, and the fish stocks will remain.
Pull him off. One of the smaller ones we got.
Oh, looks very nice too. You able to just hold that plate for us, Pete? Gee, he was lucky to fit in the barbecue, this one. Those other ones don't fit.
Take them home and cook them in a whole oven.
When cooked whole, the skin acts as a jacket and seals in all the moisture and delicate flavours. There's not a chef in the world who could match this lunch.
And these are one of the very, very best eating fish of all of them, aren't they?
Prime eating fish.
"20 minutes ago, this fish was swimming just there. Put a bit of burley in the water, brought them up to the back of the boat, and that's a pretty easy and quick way to catch fish.
They don't taste too bad either, Peter.
Well, you'd consider, up there, you'd consider these the best eating fish of all, wouldn't you?
Mangrove jack are up there, premium quality. Absolutely beautiful.
Even, a lot of people rate them even a bit higher than barramundi, don't they?
Oh, for sure. Very, very sweet fish, nice texture.
All right, your turn. I'm going to go and catch another one.
Offshore, schools of tuna are hunting the bait fish to the surface. From there, the bait can't escape.
Take it right in amongst them and then drop it out.
When the tuna are bursting out of the water, it's a great time to pull out the fly tackle. Make a long cast into the school and retrieve the fly as fast as your hands can move.
He doesn't even know it yet.
You got a double walker.
I consider longtail or northern bluefin to be the strongest of all the tuna species I've encountered. Once hooked, their first run is a scorcher. The line melts from the reel and hums through the guides. You think it's never going to end. Then they go deep and begin to circle round and round. It becomes a game of catch me if you can, a game of endurance at both ends. Many tuna fight to the very end. If you don't apply enough pressure, they can just follow the school. These fish have great stamina and speed. Often they'll come to the boat beyond revival. Fortunately, they're also a great bait for catching bottom species.
One of the things about the fishery up here is it always seems to be glassy calm. Just enough breeze to take the sting out of the heat. And you can really work up a sweat on a lot of fish up here. And it's just been a steady stream of hookups all day. Never longer than about 20 minutes between one of the rods going off, or two of the rods going off, or three of the rods going off. End of a long day, and I think this might be the biggest fish of the day.
From the inland floodplains to the surrounding seas, Darwin is a fishing city. It's in the middle of an endless variety of fishing opportunities that are very accessible. No wonder it's such a popular destination.
You want to land that? Golden Valley. See, they got a very telescopic mouth. Nothing gets wasted out here, does it, Roy?
No, nothing. This fellow, we're going to put in a brine tonight of salt and pepper and a lot of other things.
Right.
And then after it's brined all night, we'll be smoking it tomorrow.
Right. So you soak it in brine overnight?
Yeah.
Right.
In our pottery kiln, cum smoker.
Have you got a secret brine recipe, have you?
Yes, we have actually. And tomorrow we'll be smoking it all day, a cold smoke.
Right.
With coconut husk.
So what happens to the frame?
The frame gets buried up in the orchard.
Right.
It comes back as bananas and pawpaws, and vegetables and greens, we're sort of, the whole island's based around, we're so far from anywhere, we use everything. This is a Malvern Star coconut grater, Peter. I still haven't got around to changing the pedal.
That's recycling.
We're actually grating this because tonight we're going to wring the cream out of this.
Right.
We actually, this fibre that we've got here, we wring through a cloth and we get this beautiful viscous cream. We're going to do raw fish, we'll marinate it and then we'll put it into this cream.
Right.
But the coconut to us is just our lifeblood in this island.
Yeah.
All the young chooks and ducks eat the grated stuff. The pigs eat the whole nuts. You just axe them and they just grind them out with their teeth.
Do they get their
The chooks
starch in
peck
there?
it out,
Yeah.
and the ducks basically will, even the ducks with their bills will get it out.
Haggerston Island could be run on a self-sufficient basis.
We've got three on.
To include variety in the food supply, however, domestic animals were introduced. They're kept enclosed to protect the natural bush that covers the island.
Now what you're going to do is you're going to give them those fish we caught this morning.
Righto.
Oi! Oi! Pick! Just throw it out.
There you go.
The problem of fresh fruit and vegetables is easy to overcome. Roy and his wife grow their own. There are some real exotics being cultivated in jungle gardens.
Yeah, this is one of those vegetables I was telling you about, Peter, that people have probably never seen. It's called a wing bean.
Right.
It's an unusual looking thing. As I said, it looks like a woman's garter. But we found that this bean just loves this island. I think it's something that's come down from tropical regions like New Guinea.
Right.
Grows here just prolifically, and they are delicious. And we just get so much of them. One bean on the trellis will just provide buckets of it. And it runs for months.
Really?
You know. So they're one of the fantastic foods we've got.
You
Just
can
go for it.
eat that raw, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. Very, very. It's
Tastes
one of our important.
very much like a snow pea.
Mm.
Like a raw snow pea. It's got that sort of flavour. So this is where I come for a hot shower.
Yeah, this is the outdoor hot shower here. This runs on, it's just a little bit of coconut husk, a little bit of kerosene, and you've got this ancient looking contraption, and it just works brilliantly. The hot water would come in about 2 minutes, and it lasts as long as you want it to, and of course all the water's going onto these fruit trees here in the garden, so it's just another thing around the island that's great for us.
What if it gets too hot?
If it gets too hot, you turn the water up faster, or you can drag this out just a little bit. That reduces it. So it's just where you place that is how hot a shower you want. It's something everyone should be using. God, that's hot now. You feel that? Incredible. It's really hot. Yeah. You watch. You watch.
Too hot.
Oh, yeah, she's boiling now, see?
Steaming.
Do you want to cook those eggs?
This is your smoker.
This looks good. Fantastic.
That's the mackerel we caught yesterday.
Yep, that's been about nearly 2 days in there now with coconut husk. Just slowly coal fillet. It's not hot.
It's cold smoke.
Yeah, it's cold smoke. You can feel it. It's just got that oil coming out.
Yes, sir.
This is going to be scrumptious.
Oh,
God, one each by the look of them. Bad luck about the rest of them. No, just slice it thin and you have it with lemon juice. It's delicious.
Beautiful.
That's the mackerel you caught.
Right, that's very popular with your guests. Though.
Oh, they love it.
Yeah.
They want to take it home, and we quite often just keep running the smoker flat out.
You think there's a little piece I could take home?
You can take a lot home.
That's right.
In the north of Australia, abundant wet seasons are followed by long dry periods. The meeting of fresh and salt water creates a fertile environment. Many fish that inhabit Australian rivers can live comfortably in either. Rivers are a special place for fishermen. The Olive River is only minutes from Haggerston Island. It's one of the most pristine rivers I've encountered in this country.
This is
the Olive River, mate.
This is the Olive River.
It's a beautiful river, you know. It's so clean. There's no sediment flowing. It's tidal.
It's just a classic river. I love coming up it. There's no access to it from the coast.
Right. So it's
And
you can only approach it.
You can only get into it by boat. And it's just fantastic upstream. It changes. It goes into Nipa Palm, but it is a really clean. It's a river of white sand.
Yeah.
And jungles.
Yeah,
and
really.
It's just
And
tremendous.
that Nipa Palm, is that the same one that they get in
Same
New
one
Guinea?
as in New Guinea.
Remnant of the Ice Age or something, when the New Guinea and Australia were connected, I suppose.
It's one of the best thatching materials, much better than coconut Nipa. Lasts about 5 years longer on a roof.
Right.
It's great stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But this river, I love camping up this river. It's just so wild and you can feel it.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
As we travel upstream, we encounter a classic fish holding situation. A rock bar where a tributary joins the main river. Right on cue, it was boiling with fish feeding off the surface. Tarpon or ox-eye herring are a prolific sport fish found in these northern rivers. Elsewhere in the world, they grow to over 100 kilos. Our species is the midget of the tribe. They don't grow much larger than this one, but they're aggressive fish and great sport.
We just looked them in.
No worries. So silver, aren't they? God, they're fantastic looking fish. Beautiful fish. Look at the colour. Goldy black. Silver. Fantastic.
The value of these mangrove-lined rivers is in the nutrients and the shelter they contain. They're spawning grounds and nurseries for many species of fish and crustaceans. A healthy estuary system is reflected in the offshore fishery. The relationship between the two is unbreakable. Observant fishermen have always known this. Roy's isolated lifestyle wouldn't suit everyone. His years of living throughout the Pacific, especially in New Guinea, was an ideal preparation for this place. The Olive River, with its distinctive Nipa palm vegetation, is very reminiscent of the rivers found in New Guinea. Many of the fish species, such as barramundi, sooty grunters and Saratoga, are found in both places as well.
I hunted crocodiles nearly 500 miles up the Fly River. I hunted close to Moresby where I was based. There was an incredible swamp system where there was the giant Papuan black bass and barramundi and teeming with ducks and crocodiles and really good herds of rooster deer in an incredible lush jungle environment. So I just spent those years there thinking it would never end, and it was just the most wonderful period of my life. New Guinea had changed, so I returned to Cairns. Not sure what to do, playing a bit of music. Someone suggested I should do some building. Just make a lot of money doing spec building. So I gave it a go. And I found I had a bit of knack for design. So I started doing an environmental type of house. And that was, I think, where my reputation, or for building, it turned into. It's very native-orientated building. Yeah, I got a couple of lucky breaks. I did the designs for Robert Holmes A Court on Double Island. And that led to getting to doing Coconut Beach Rainforest Resort. I designed and built that, and that actually won international design awards. Yeah, it was about the time that I was doing those resorts coincided with my longing to return to the wilderness. Initially, I think I probably thought of going to the Cape somewhere, and then just the idea of an island came along, and I came to this place, which was a long story in itself. But we arrived here in about 84 with a big barge just loaded with everything, chickens, fruit trees, and friends to help me. And the barge dropped its gates, unloaded everything, and here we were. And we were just left to our own end here, and we slowly commenced building. And of course we also had to live, we had to eat, and there was the orchard to dig out, and there was just terribly basic things.
After a long day on the water, it's good to relax under the tropical stars on a warm night. Barbecues are part of this lifestyle. Fresh reef fish is best cooked very simply.
Throughout a lot of the Pacific Islands, it's the head fish, the real.
The lodge is on the sheltered northern side of the island. A beach is formed naturally due to the effects of the prevailing southeasterly winds. On an incoming tide, many species of fish move in over the sand flats. Small black-tipped reef sharks aren't far behind. Through polarised sunglasses, they're clearly visible as they move up into the shallows. They're here to feed and will pounce on a fly like a cat on a mouse.
Oh. Geez, they go, these little reef sharks. These, I haven't had nearly as much time to explore the flats here as I'd like, but these black-tipped reef sharks are one of the really exciting options available here.
Not far offshore in the crystal clear waters surrounding the island lives one creature whose eating qualities appeal to most people, the tropical painted cray.
Oh, Roy, these are the most spectacular crayfish I've ever seen. Could you tell me about them?
Well, they're a fantastic creature to me too, Peter. They're just, I never cease to amaze at all their colours.
They're beautiful.
And they're so prolific. There's just so many of them. This is just their region. They love it. Everything that they want to eat is here, and there's all the cover, and there's not many people.
Right, yeah.
So this crayfish really, it's his area, his region.
Are they as good eating as they look?
They're absolutely fantastic. A lot of people feel that southern lobsters are more tasty than these.
Yeah.
They are not.
Yeah.
These are just as delicious as a lobster can be.
Yeah.
Look at all the meat there. There's a kilo of meat in that tail. And each of these legs, just the legs and horns on this crayfish, would be enough for a meal.
Yeah.
They're just so beautiful.
Fishing is a pastime that is enjoyed by many for a variety of reasons. The oldest reason is to catch a meal. The reefs here have an abundance of the best eating fish you could find anywhere. Coral trout, red emperor and mangrove jacks are at the top of any gourmet eating list. All of these can be caught on bait or lures off the edge of the reef. The seas around Haggerston Island are so abundant with these great table fish that you can eat fresh fish daily. It usually takes only an hour to catch enough to feed the island's inhabitants. Poorer eating fish, usually the larger specimens of a species, are returned to the water to spawn and maintain the population. Roy is in his element with this style of fishing. These food-gathering expeditions are a daily highlight for his guests. The frenzy of fishing activity the minute the baits hit the bottom is due to his extensive knowledge of these waters and the habits of the fish in them. The best fishing is at the top of the tide. When this coincides with dawn or dusk, the fishing can be spectacular. Visiting the remote northern reaches of the Barrier Reef can really open your eyes. The decline in the health of the southern end of the reef provides a stark contrast with the far north. Here there is no pollution, no agricultural runoff. The commercial fishing is still light. When comparing the north with the south, we become aware of how finite and how fragile this system is. For this area to remain healthy, great care needs to be taken. Unwanted species, particularly the less edible pelagics such as queenfish and trevally, are excellent sport fish. They also provide a great photo opportunity. There is such a diversity of species and habitats here. A few days in these waters is just not long enough for an avid fisherman like me. You could fish a new area every day using a different technique and still barely touch a corner of this wilderness. The main outer edge of the barrier reef is only 40 minutes from Haggerston. Between the mainland and this edge lies a complex of islands and reefs that no recreational fisherman has been near. Even Roy gets excited about the prospect of heading east to the main edge of the reef. The guests who get to make this trip with him will have fishing tales to last a lifetime. It's the adventuring fisherman syndrome, always the next reef over the horizon where the fish have never seen a hook or a line.
Shark mackerel there, Roy.
Yes, beautiful.
Pelagic hunting fish, looking for fast-moving little bait fish. I took that as I was winding it in.
Part of the appeal that fishing has for me is the process of learning about the cycles of the sea. Also about the habits of the many species of fish that live within these cycles. Fish never just happen to be somewhere. There is a structure to their lives dominated by the tides and the phases of the moon. The amount of water movement varies. There are changes in the availability of plankton and the bait fish that feeds on it. Only the broad patterns are predictable, not the subtleties. The Great Barrier Reef is an immensely complex living system. Visitors from around the world enjoy it for different reasons. The mass of life on display is not secretive. It's right in front of you if you're prepared to look. The best fishermen I have come across miss no clues. Even creatures that may seem unrelated are signposts to something else. They all fit into the cycle of the seas and the subtle relationship which exists. The movements and habits of small reef fish are included in this cycle. Few places on Earth have as much appeal to fishermen as areas of tropical wilderness. The scale of the world up here is very large. The dream of living on a tropical island surrounded by fish is one that many of us have. Mark Twain said, "The secret to a happy life is to make your vocation your vacation." I think Roy has succeeded.